BBC Two re-examines the murder of Burmese leader Aung San and asks if the British were guilty of his murder.
"50 years ago, this man was leading Burma towards independence from Britain. He died in a hail of assassins' bullets." This Burmese politician was hanged for the crime. But did he and his gunmen really act alone, or were shadowy elements of the British establishment behind the plot? In August 1988, the people of Burma defied decades of military oppression with one of the most remarkable popular uprisings of recent times. The demonstrators carried pictures of this man. General Aung San, the country's greatest hero, led Burma to independence from Britain and founded the army that rules today. The demonstrators believed if they carried pictures of Aung San, no soldier would harm them, but they were wrong. It's estimated that as many as 10,000 people were killed in the bloody slaughter that followed. But from the ashes of repression emerged a leader whose popularity was to bravely threaten the generals in Rangoon. Her name was Aung San Suu Kyi, daughter of the hero Aung San.
The reason why I got involved in the movement for democracy for Burma was because so many people here were looking back to my father as the only hope for them, so I felt I had a duty to help.
Amid a roundup of activists in 1989, Suu Kyi was placed under house arrest. Nevertheless, the pressure for elections was unstoppable. And the following year, her party, the National League for Democracy, won an overwhelming victory at the polls. But the generals refused to hand over power and kept Suu Kyi imprisoned. In 1991, she won the Nobel Prize for Peace. The regime finally released her 2 years ago, but hopes of a swift end to military rule were to prove short-lived. Now the situation is as desperate as ever. Suu Kyi, though free, remains under constant harassment by the authorities. In 1997, the people of Burma live in the shadow of fear. And it's been like this for 50 years, ever since Burma won independence from Britain. But it didn't always look that way. In January 1947, Suu Kyi's father, Aung San, led a delegation to London to negotiate independence with the Labour government of Clement Attlee. There were many in Britain, including opposition leader Winston Churchill, who would have had Aung San tried for war crimes. Less than 4 years earlier, he had presided as Minister of War in the Japanese-backed Burmese administration in Rangoon. During the fighting, his soldiers had killed thousands of ethnic minority Karens who had remained loyal to the British. In 1947, however, the Labour government was keen to do business with Aung San, and with him at the helm, the future of Burma looked promising. But 6 months after this film was taken, disaster struck. On the 19th of July 1947, Aung San was chairing a meeting of his cabinet when 3 gunmen burst in and opened fire. Aung San died later in hospital. He was just 32 years old. The assassination sent tremors around the world.
Aung San was irreplaceable. There was literally no one who could take Aung San's place as the leader and representative of the Burmese people.
The assassination was found to be the work of Aung San's political arch-rival. His name was U Saw. U Saw was tried and hanged, but now, 50 years later, a new witness suggests U Saw may not have been acting alone.
Well, he said, I was just let down, wasn't I? Government House let me down. I said, what do you mean let you down? There couldn't be a party to executions and assassinations. He said, well, look, there were certain indications to me that things would be all right.
And here at the Public Record Office in London, documents kept secret for nearly 50 years strengthened the suspicion that British interests were involved in the assassination of Aung San. In tonight's specially extended edition of East, we tell the remarkable story of Aung San and why it was some people in Britain wanted him dead. To make this film, we travelled to Rangoon. We had to go undercover because in Burma, perhaps more than anywhere else in the world, the past is the present. The ruling junta did not cooperate with our film about the founder of their national army. Many of Aung San's friends and colleagues who spoke to us were running considerable risks, even though they were talking of events 50 years ago and more.
If only he was not assassinated, Burma will not get into such trouble, I think.
For decades after Aung San's death, 10:37 on the morning of the 19th of July was the moment when all Burma stopped, remembered the country's greatest hero, and wept.
I felt my heart sank. Everybody in Rangoon, when we heard that, we just couldn't speak to one another.
When they have carried out Aung San's corpse with stretchers, I passed just inside the secretary compound, and one secretary of the government ministry, Uchanda, made a remark.
And it's not just in Burma that the assassination is chillingly remembered.
We were sitting having a drink or something in an office that was very close to the council chamber, when we suddenly heard 2 or 3 bursts of automatic fire.
I heard this rattle, tattle, tattle. And I said to this man, I said, look, that sounds like machine gun fire. And he said, no, no, sir. He said, it's the derricks on the quay. Soon after that, somebody rushed into the CID office and said, quick, quick, there's a shooting in the chamber.
There was blood everywhere, quite frankly, and blood of a kind I'd never seen before, because the guns had been fired at very close quarters. There were bits of entrails, and parts of the table had been destroyed by the fire. There were sandals that had been kicked off, lying in the blood.
I saw Aung San's body. He was the only one I could see because the room was full of smoke caused by this firing.
The government in London was notified immediately.
This was the very worst Saturday afternoon I can remember in all my life. I was rung up from my office and told by my secretary that there was an urgent message for me from the governor of Burma. And the message, of course, was that the cabinet had been assassinated.
Suspicion soon centred on a rival politician, U Saw. U Saw had been Prime Minister before the war, but was now seeing power slip from his grasp. The assassins were spotted returning to U Saw's lakeside house in North Rangoon. That afternoon, the CID swooped to make an arrest.
As soon as I went, he was sitting down in a chair, in a vest and a lungi, and he was drinking something which turned out to be whiskey. And as I went in there with my pistol,